What is up, guys? This is my very first podcast episode, and in this video, I am going to be talking about a couple different things. And first off, I'm going to tell you what they are. But before I get started in that, make sure to, just support the podcast. And also, I definitely want you to go and see my channel on YouTube, which is called Super Steve. But you can find it easier if you search Super Steve Trick Shots. And so let's dive right into this. So first of all, the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is a little bit of survival, a little survival view of what we're going to do and what we need to do and need to know how to do when the economy collapses and or when something big goes down and we need to leave our home or can't leave our home. So we need to know, we need to have resources to help ourselves when we are in a situation where they're necessary and to prepare for that situation. And we need to have knowledge and no panic when those situations arise, because we know they're going to arise. They're going to happen one day. We just don't know when, and that's why we need to be prepping for when those days might come. The second aspect of this is the economy is about to leave. The dollar is going to be worthless. So, guys, also while you're listening to this, go buy some silver or gold if you can afford it. Not really gold, silver more, because silver is more affordable and easier to pay with. Because when the dollar collapses, people who don't buy gold and silver are going to be broke, and they're going to have to sell things that they need, like household appliances, like that are necessary to get gold and silver, and they're going to be selling them in gold and silver for gold and silver so that their family can have money and not be broke, so they can buy food. And if the water is actually still running, which it probably won't be, because my family has a water runoff. So when it rains, this is a big drought, but when it rains, we get water. We have no city water connection, except for every now and then when we're low on water, sometimes a lot more when there's a big drought or whatever. If it hasn't rained, we have to go and get water in our tank. So about that family, the family would have to pay for the food in that gold and silver coming from things they sold, and they'd have to pay for food. They'd have to pay for water if the water was still there, or if the stores were still up, they'd have to pay for things to get a water runoff. And if I don't know, I'm a little bit of a mechanic, not a mechanic, but a builder person. I don't really know if a tank that connects to city water, I don't know if you can connect a runoff to that. You probably can in some way, but they'd have to pay to probably people who don't have gold and silver. They probably wouldn't know how to do that. So they'd have to pay for the parts if the person wanted the parts that they called, and they'd have to pay for the person themselves. So you guys need to get gold and silver for when the dollar collapses, so that you don't end up in the situation like this family that we're talking about. It's not a real family, but a family that didn't get gold and silver. They'll have to sell everything they own just to get food and water for their family. And if their house is in debt, they'd also probably have to sell everything in the house. They'd have to work a job, like a hard job, and it would not be a good life if you don't have gold and silver in that situation. So just make sure you're backing yourselves up when the dollar collapses. And when I say economy, I don't just mean the dollar. I mean like the entire civilization. Like basically kind of like in Hunger Games, when there are the districts and it's kind of civilized, but actually less civilized than that. We probably won't be killing each other, and there probably won't be a Hunger Games. That'd be kind of weird. But we will be trying to survive and looking for things to survive on and ways to thrive as well. So it'd be a struggle for food and a struggle for water, especially, and we'd really have to go back to the Stone Age. Okay, not the Stone Age. We'll have to go back to before really the Industrial Revolution. It'll be like basically nothing was ever invented, and all we're doing is our daily life. It doesn't matter. We don't need entertainment because our entertainment, quote unquote, it's not even entertainment. There's no time for entertainment because you have to find food and water. So let's get into the first aspect of this video, which I gave you a little overview about, podcast I should say. And so you need to be preparing for when the the necessariness, I don't know if that's a word, the necessariness for survival tools and knowledge. You need to be aware that that's going to come. It's going to come soon. You need to know how to survive off the land. You need to know how to find food. You need to know how to find water. And you need to know how you can just survive. You need to know how to survive. And you do need to have a very big abundance of tools. Now, I made a little list, maybe a little while back. It's a little list. It's for, basically, you're going to laugh at this one, for when the zombies come. But that's actually not too much different than when we have to go old, when we have to transfer to before the Industrial Revolution, maybe even farther back, when we're back to the point where we're just surviving like that. But also, on my list, I just want to mention this list, I had a pistol, a couple pistols, and a couple mags for the pistols. And this is because of the zombies, but you are going to want to have this when you're going to want to have this when the economy collapses. This is a little bit of things you're going to want to have. The pistol setup, a rifle and a sniper with very many, because you're going to have to raid a gun store if you run out. There was some long surviving food like nuts, pretzels, stuff, but you'd have to seal it up in a bag so it doesn't get stale. Also, one thing you're going to have to do when you get food is you're going to be careful when you're using, in the future, when the economy collapses, make sure you're using foods that do not expire quickly. And if they do expire, even if they don't expire quickly, you're going to want to make sure you have storage for them so that they do not go bad or get to the point where you don't want to eat them, which I don't think would happen, because if you got to that point, you'd probably have to eat them. So, but that's just a little bit of the things I have on that list. It's not that long. I couldn't really come up with anything else to put on it. And so, what I'm talking about right now, basically, if you got zoned out there when I was talking about that list, what I'm trying to say is get your tools to prepare, and I'll give you a couple things here. The guns we had there, you're going to want to collect a knife, a good usable knife, a jackknife here. You're going to want a sheath knife. Make sure you have the sheath, and if you're a grown man, you're probably going to be wearing a belt a lot. So make sure that you start putting that on your belt. And if you're not a man, like a child that's listening to this, or a woman who doesn't wear a belt, because some women wear belts, I don't really know, because I'm not a woman, I don't know what a woman does. If you wear a belt, basically, if you wear a belt, add this to your belt. And because you can find sheaths, and they always attach to a belt, because that's why it's called not why it's called a sheath knife, but sheath knives are conveniently created to where they can attach to your belt. If you didn't know anything about that, some people, you are gonna think I'm dumb because you probably know about that already, but just to you people who aren't expert survivalists. So another thing you're gonna want is a flashlight, obviously, and also you're gonna want to stock up on batteries for another thing. GPS, because you're not going to have a phone, you're not going to have service if the GPS on your phone needs service. But I find GPSs to be way more cool. I don't know why. They're just a lot cooler, and they're also way more reliable. And still, they're just way cool. I don't know why. They're just really cool, more convenient. They're more usable than the phone app, and more wide range. And you can also mark spots. I know you can probably do that on the phone app, but I just find it way cooler on the GPS. Back to what I was saying about the batteries. You're going to need batteries for all your electric appliances because you're not going to have very many electric appliances in the future, because if you didn't buy gold and silver, you're going to have to sell all those. And you're not going to need a lot of those, and you're not going to have any place to plug them in. That's why I'm saying stock up on batteries for the things you do need, and make sure the things that you are necessary, like a flashlight, make sure it is battery powered. Because if it's not, you're going to have a very hard time finding an outlet, and in that matter, an outlet that actually has power coming out of it. So that's, you got your knife, your flashlight, the gun set up, the food, a couple big tanks, like not a full water tank, but like, maybe 2 feet across and half a foot wide, probably a foot and a half tall. Those things, probably a couple gallons, not a Tractor Supply bucket, but like the blue ones that have handles on them. You're gonna want to fill up 5 or 6 of those. You know what? Let's go extreme here. You're gonna want to fill up about 10 of those, because this is just for a little bit, like a 10 of those for about a month, and that's for like just you. That's 10 of those big things for a month. But if you were to not shower, which is very bad, you should shower, because that's personal hygiene necessary. If you were to not shower, that would probably make it last 2 months, but that's still just for you. Maybe 1.5 months, but you use a lot more water than you actually think you do. You probably, because you shower, you don't realize how much water you use if you shower, which you should probably do. And you use a lot of water that you drink, and especially water that your entire family uses, because it's not just you that's using this water, it's your entire family. You don't realize how much water you use, because you're drinking water. If you live on a farm or even have a pet, you're giving your animals water, and in that case, we live on a farm, so we got a lot of animals. We got like 100 and some chickens that we have to water, and we have 18 sheep, I think, and 1 rabbit. I don't really know how she gets her water. We have 3 dogs, and we have to water each and every one of those. That uses a lot of water. So it'd be really hard for us especially, but I'm saying to you, maybe it'd be a good idea to stock up on a little more, just depending on how big your family is, how many animals you have. Our family would probably have to get about 50 of those to actually survive a month, maybe a couple months on 50. I mean, that's a lot for one person. The thing is, when you think about water, you only think about the one use you use it, and that is drinking it. But you use it for a lot more things. You use it for showering. You use it to sometimes rinse yourself. Not a complete shower, but maybe pour it on your hair, pour it on your face. If you got hot or if you got stuff on you, that'd probably be a shower. But you use a lot more water than you think. And I'm just saying, make sure you stock up on water. If you're city water, maybe start getting a runoff. And another thing I'm saying here is you should have a runoff, because you're probably not going to be able to buy water, because when the economy collapses, you're probably not going to be able to go to stores. And the stores are probably going to be out of business because they can't really survive without the economy. And so what I'm saying here is make sure that you have a runoff, make sure you have good water supply. We got food covered, we got water covered, we got knife, flashlight covered. Oh, another thing you do need, it's got multiple purposes. It's very necessary. It's called a handkerchief, for those of you who don't really know. A lot of people, if you do know, though. It's going to be about a 20-minute video, just saying. You need to have a handkerchief. You need to know what a handkerchief is for. I'll give you a couple uses here. Nosebleed, blow your nose. You probably have tissues. That's another thing. But if you have a handkerchief, you can wash it, which is a big, big staple, because you don't have to keep using tissues. You don't have to run out of tissues. You don't have to realize, oh gosh, I have to raid a store because I'm out of tissues. I can't blow my nose. You can't on a leaf. But a handkerchief makes it a lot more convenient, and that way you're not just surviving, you're thriving. That's the point. You don't want to just be surviving, because if you're surviving, there's no point in life, because God made the world so that we can worship Him, but He also wanted us to have a good time while doing it, and if we're just surviving, there's no point. So we need to be thriving as well. Make sure that you get a handkerchief because it's got multiple purposes. Another one I forgot to mention, smoke, and also sandstorms, if that happens around your area, and if it doesn't, dust that comes up through the air when you're doing things. Also, a chainsaw and anything that's necessary for a chainsaw, in case you need wood, if you need a fire, because you're probably going to run out eventually of natural falling wood. And also, if there's a tree in the way, if you're building something, which is probably unlikely, because it's gonna take a lot to build things while this happens. And you're gonna also need, be honest here, chainsaw, you're going to have to clear a lot of trees, because I guarantee you, when in the end of times, the weather's probably going to pick up, and you're going to need some way to clear these trees, because all of them are going to be falling because of the wind, the rain, the thunder, everything. You're going to need a chainsaw to clear it out, in case you're building something, already said, highly unlikely. And if you are trying to get somewhere, sometimes you just climb over it, but if you're trying to go somewhere in a car, you need a chainsaw. You can just chop it up into pieces, roll them off a hill, or roll them to the side, which you should be able to do. That leads me into my next point, which is you need to be fit. You need to be fit before this happens, so you can do things that non-fit people won't be able to do, and so you can be more mobile and be able to roll those logs like I was talking about. So some other things you need, you're also going to need a couple other things, quite a few things that you don't realize that you know. So here's a couple things, I'm going to give you a couple. For those of you who didn't take heed of my advice and get the battery powered things, you're going to need a power bank and maybe another power bank to charge the power bank when it runs out, which is kind of dumb, but you don't realize how quick a power bank charges up, and it will probably take 2 or 3 charges out of the other power bank, which is great, because you can have, if you realize, if the power bank can charge 3 times out of the other power bank, imagine how many times a non-strong charging thing, like a phone, which I do not have and don't plan on it, and also things like, if you had a charging GPS or a charging flashlight, that doesn't take much power, so your power bank will be good 3 times, and you may just want to have 3 or 4 power banks that you can charge on your appliances. But if you choose to have one, consider buying another one to charge it with, that's it for the power bank. And we're about to wrap this up. We're going to, I shouldn't have said 20-minute video. We're probably going to make this 30. So keep tuning in. It's going to be good. A couple more things you need. We're about to wrap up this section, is what I'm saying. This part of the video. The first survival part, and then we'll go to the economy a little. It won't take as long for the economy. A couple more things you need that have not been mentioned yet. If you're not fit, you're going to probably, the only thing you really need to be fit is, if you're really very desperate, a push-up bar, which is not necessary, and a couple weights if you're older. For kids who are trying to get fit, all you really need to do is work on body weight. I'm very skinny, so I just need to really work on eating more. I don't have to worry about much being fit because it comes naturally. I do a couple push-ups. My strength stays with me. Like, it doesn't really leave, because my body type will always stay the same, and I'll always be a really thin, skin and bones person. So just keep in mind, you need to have a way to work out if you don't already. I'm not saying push-ups and jumping jacks are bad, but sometimes other things can be better depending on your body. If you're skin and bones like me, you'll basically not really need anything. All you have to do is body weight things like push-ups, squats, jumping jacks, things like that. Maybe a couple stretches. If you still have a phone, you can maybe watch a YouTube video about that. If YouTube hasn't collapsed yet, of course. Wink, wink. Also, just make sure that you know what you're doing when you work out and you're not going to hurt yourself. Because when you're doing push-ups, I used to do push-ups the wrong way. And my dad told me that if I did that way, when I grow up, I could actually hurt my arms. And I wouldn't be able to work out anymore. And therefore, I'd lose my fitness. And so I won't be able to do things like that. But if you're older, if you're younger, just make sure you ask your parents if they know how to do a push-up correctly, which mine do. I'm very lucky. Or if your parents don't know, there's nothing wrong with that. Some parents just don't know how to do a push-up. Maybe watch a YouTube video about how to do a push-up the right way. Make sure it's right. Make sure it's absolutely right. Check the comments. Make sure nobody says this is fake. This is not how you do a push-up. But the reason why I'm saying this is because if you do it too thin and it's not a little bit wider than shoulder length, you could actually hurt your arms pretty bad and mess them up so that you can't really use them in your future days. So make sure you know how to do a push-up. That's really the only one you got to worry about. Really, if you do the other ones wrong, the only consequence will be you can't get fit as well as the normal ones. That's all about the fitness, and I think that's basically all for the real essentials that you need to survive. Oh, another thing you need, last thing I'll say, is a tent and a sleeping bag, because that's your shelter. 3 basics: food, water, shelter. We went over that. And that is it for the section of survival. Let's move on to the economy. We should actually make this a 20-minute. I think we can make it, but maybe 25. Maybe we'll fill into the upper 20s. So, about the economy, I think the economy is going to collapse here soon. I don't mean tomorrow soon. I mean in a couple, maybe years. Couple years, it may actually collapse within a year. So this is why I'm making this podcast, so that you guys know what to do. You guys know what to do when this happens, because some of you guys aren't going to know what to do, and you may not survive. And if you don't survive and you're not a Christian, which is another thing in this video I'm going to mention, if you don't survive, then you're going to go to hell. And that's not good. That's really not good. So you need to make sure you know how to survive. And if you don't survive, make sure you are definitely a Christian. Make sure you're reading your Bible every day and that you're being in prayer very often. So make sure that you are a Christian. If you're not, maybe consider being a Christian. I mean, God created the world, okay? And you need to know, recognize, and worship your Creator, who sent His only Son to die on the cross for our sins, because we sinned. Adam messed it up in the garden. Eve got tempted by the devil and ate an apple. In case you didn't know, that she was forbidden to eat. She also gave some to her husband. I always blame it on him, because he should have known better. He should have known better to let his wife do that. He was standing right there. He should have known better to let his wife eat that apple. And the serpent was the devil, the fallen angel, whose name is Lucifer, who wanted all the power Jesus had, or God had. And so Jesus died on the cross for all that sin that was passed down through Adam and Eve to all of mankind, so that whoever believes that Jesus died on the cross, that He did that for our sins, He died for our sins, so that whoever knows that He did that will live forever in heaven instead of hell. Because we deserve to go to hell. Don't get me wrong, we deserve to go to hell. Alright, we're running out of time here. I gotta get to the economy. Make sure you're a Christian is my point. So, what I'm saying here is the dollar collapses. We already said a little bit about gold and silver. Really, the only thing left to be said is, make sure, I know this is gonna sound dumb, if you're not an old people, which I respect you old people, because I just know my grandparents watch a lot of news, and nothing wrong with that. If you watch a lot of news, that's great, because you're updated about the economy, because I consider the economy to be kind of like the government. The government is basically the main part of the economy, and it's very important. I know I don't really respect this as much as I should. It's very important to know what's going on presidentially, because I won't I won't name any names here, but most of the people who are coming up who are going to get elected, I'm not saying any of them are better than others. Some of them have a little bit of a better mindset. They're not good. None of them are good. Their minds turn. Like if I was to run for president and with my good heart, good intentions, it changes people. It's not great. It's not good. It changes people. Keep that in mind. It changes very good people to very bad and despicable people with bad mindsets. Don't get into politics if you can help it. Don't. Unless you know that you can keep that mindset and you have a very strong mindset, don't get into politics. Whatever you do, don't get into politics. It changes people and you shouldn't be into it. But just make sure you're updated about who's going to be president, and make sure, I won't say this is kind of dumb, watch the commercials about the people. Some of the things are fake and you do need to watch out for clipping together different things they said. Some of them tell you who's bad and who's good, not good, who's bad and who's badder, who's worse. And it's just very, very useful. I recommend watching news because it helps not just with the politics, but it also tells you where the economy is and how close we are to the economy collapsing, which is why you need to watch the news, because it tells you when you need to start preparing, or if you're not prepared, you've got days to prepare. You've got to go rush to the stores, which are probably going to be already out by then. And another thing I want to mention here, I know we've made it to 20 minutes now. Another thing I want to mention is everybody was getting toilet paper for some reason, and they kind of are still. I really don't know why. Comment why. I'm not actually sure. I know it's necessary for hygiene, but I don't know why. Of all the things they could have bought, they bought toilet paper. I don't know why. It's weird. Just make sure you're commenting on that. Stay active on the chat, the comments, and just comment. Stay positive. But what I was talking about is the news updates you on when the economy is going to collapse, which is great because also that leads back to what I was saying previously about the economy. You need to be prepared so that when you're watching the news, I need to say something. Before you watch the news, be prepared. Then start watching the news and watch for any signs of the economy collapsing. And then you need to start using your stuff. You need to start slowly fading away from all your screens and start fading in to the woods. Not the woods, I shouldn't say, but start less and less relying on your phone, computers, TVs. Start less and less relying because you're going to lose them soon. Your power's probably going to go out. You're going to lose your water connections. If you're city water, which you shouldn't be, we already talked about this, you need to change. It actually doesn't take that much. We did it in a couple months. Make sure that you are good with prepping. You have made it. I'm gonna say one or two more things about the economy. It's not a big subject, but make sure that you're prepped. Make sure before you watch news, make sure you're prepped. And once you're prepped, start watching it so that you can know when you need to start using your things. I know I've said this multiple times. It's a very strong point, and I just need you to focus on it, and so that you know this. You know what I'm saying, and make sure you understand it. That's what I'm trying to do when I repeat it. I'm making sure you understand it. So I think we're about to wrap this up. 2 main points. Make sure that you know what tools you're getting, and make sure you know how to use them, and also make sure you're staying updated on what is happening in the economy. So, wait a minute. I just realized something. I gotta say something real quick. I'm way past 20 minutes. I just realized that. Because I had a clip because my computer died, had to redo it. But this is gonna be like 28 minutes. I'm sorry about that. But last thing I want to say, the 2 things I've already said about it, but the 2 things are survival and economy. Stay tuned on news so that you know where everything is economy-wise, and just make sure that your family and your pets, you don't want to lose any pets. I know nobody wants to lose any animals. Make sure you're not losing anything. Try and keep your pets safe because they don't really know what's going on. Make your family, your young ones, your wife, if you have a wife, And if you're a man, your husband probably won't have to worry about your husband. Your husband will be worried about you already. So make sure that you are completely prepped, and once you're prepped, start staying updated. And that's the point of today. Stay updated on the news and basically everything going on in the economical world. Start buying gold, silver, and that's basically it. Thank you for watching this, listening to this podcast, and I'd like to see you in the next video or podcast. Why do I keep saying video? It's because I'm used to YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, go check my YouTube channel out. It's pretty awesome. It's called Super Steve, but you can find it easier by searching Super Steve Trick Shots. I find it's the first thing that comes up, and I'll see you in the next podcast.